The time is finally here for the next YouTuber League weekly recap, as we are now down to 4 remaining teams battling out for the glory and prestige of being the champions of the season. Many more players' lives and careers are going to end tonight, as there is no substitute to pulling punches, no replacement for daring and Hail Mary plays, and nowhere to go but secure victory at any cost, or suffer the tragic defeat of being trampled over by their betters, as they become the stepping stone for the victors towards their journey to the finals. After tonight, 2 of our remaining 4 teams will be eliminated, and we will know who our 2 finalists will be. So without further ado, let us dive into our matches and see what bloodshed awaits us. Sitting at 1680 team value, going into our first match, and relatively unscathed after their game versus the Leglickers, it is the godlike Puns as they face off against our slayer of champions, the Cursed Suffering, who are sitting at 1500 team value. The Chaos Dwarves unsurprisingly are riding high after not only knocking out our number 1 team, How Not to Contain Lizards, but defeating them twice in a row through back-to-back matches just as the regular season was coming to a close. And now with the power they have to bring in their mighty blow, they are looking to continue steamrolling their way to the finals. Thankfully, only having a single claw player on the team is going to be good for keeping the team value bloat down, while opening up the possibility to remove the Norsemen's prized Ulfwereners and Yeti should those players ever leave themselves exposed. And with 3 guard players to bring into this match versus the godlike Puns, all the ingredients are in place for another possible victory for our underdog team. The only wild card for this game is Thought That Counts, whose sheer power will be tearing apart the Dwarven line without breaking a sweat. But that's only if the Yeti can cooperate with his teammates on the pitch, and he is able to get into the Sufferer's front line to lay waste on their players. Which of these 2 teams are going into the finals? Well, let's find out. Fans of the North see to giving the Puns an early numbers advantage, as a rock of the Romke's Rock brand flies across the field to take out a lowly hobgoblin on the kickoff. Which was a very short-lived triumph, as the Chaos Dwarves' response was swift and deadly, using the Wizard's Fireball to immediately counter the fans' ambitious efforts. Thankfully for the Puns, their players survived the massive blast, but with half the Norsemen down on the ground, the Chaos Dwarves still had gained full reign of the field and pushed hard into their opponent's side of the pitch. They completely surrounded the godlike Puns, but an overextension of their players allowed the Norsemen to strike back from a fortunate turnover they were gifted, and the wide formation left for a massive opening to rush down Larry Butts and sack the ball. With all the dwarves now tied up in the ensuing brawl, an early touchdown was looking very likely for the Norse team. But as Sita Anapyr makes his way towards the end zone with the ball in hand, the remainder of the team suffers terrible retribution, as barely Odin on, the Norse star runner, is going to be missing the rest of the playoffs, as he takes a cheap shot from Guts and suffers a groin strain. But the price may very well be worth it, as the godlike Puns are the first team to get onto the board with the first touchdown. The Cursed Suffering, now furious with the outcome of the first drive, take their frustration out on the line of scrimmage and continue to wear down the reserves of the Norsemen, as Juno Not My Best Face loses his life on the Blood Bowl pitch. The wild swings of the dwarves, despite their effectiveness, left another opening in their formation, but they would not fall for the same trick twice, as repeated turnovers inflicted on the Norsemen give the sufferers the window they need for Dalinar to recover the ball and make a sprint towards the end zone. Failing to keep up and deny a tie game, at the end of the first half, Dalinar single-handedly saves the sufferers from being at a deficit for halftime, as now both teams are tied 1-1. Both teams are still 11 players strong going into the next kickoff, with the godlike Puns setting the pace for this half as they receive the ball and push hard onto the right flank of the Cursed Suffering. But with an abysmal attempt of a foul, the Dwarves gain the numbers advantage as they withstand the blows thrown their way, locking themselves into a brawl to the death along the line of scrimmage. Meanwhile, the Puns continue to widen the gap, forming on the sidelines, which only serves to extend the player advantage for the Dwarves, as Shax personally saw to it that no one would be sneaking past under his watchful gaze. With the attrition continuing to mount against the Norsemen, they fell back to rely on the power of their Yeti to help even the odds, and when that trust was found wanting, Sita Anapyrer went all in towards the end zone, completely naked and alone, as Shax happily walked up to the brazen runner and sent him down to the ground. The brawl on the line of scrimmage was continuing uninterrupted, leaving very few Norsemen capable of contesting the ball from the mighty Bull Centaur, as players continued being removed from the pitch. In the end, the Puns continued committing to their all-in play, for no other option was available to them, as a lat of punching breaks out of his cage, surrounded by 2 Bull Centaurs and Dwarves, and manages to put an end to the beatdown across the pitch, as the Puns retake the lead in this game. With the clock counting down, the Norse put everything into tying up the Sufferers to secure their victory in this match, blitzing on the kickoff and attempting to take the Bull Centaurs out of the game. It was a costly strategy, however, succeeding in having the apothecary work in overtime at the sheer number of casualties in the ongoing brawl, which could prove disastrous if this match is forced into overtime. With this in mind, I Apologize makes one last blitz onto Larry, and with the successful sack and grab, manages to secure the victory for the godlike Puns, cementing their place into the finals of the YouTuber League. For our other match, representing the final 2 semifinalists, we have the Fragile Bloodmarks sitting at a team value of 1570 as they go up against the Reikland All Elite, coming into this match at 1490 team value. Reikland has been hit hard in their last game, with their heavy-hitting ogre Paul White out for this match to recover from his injuries, leaving the rest of the team to fight without him, which is going to make for a very unique game, as Reikland are now almost on equal footing against the Bloodmarks, with only their armor and a few guard players to help them in getting the upper hand in the brawl to come. It may not be enough, however, as an Agility 4 player like Paper can very easily run circles around the human team and strike where they are most vulnerable, meaning if Reikland do not bring their best for this game, they will most likely flounder as they struggle to keep up with the Elves, especially with no reserve players to cover for any casualties they may suffer throughout the course of the match. Will they be able to secure victory? There is only one way to find out. Before the match could even start, however, the ever-riotous crowds took their excitement out on the poor goblin referees, leaving the few surviving goblins ever timid of enforcing the rules as the Bloodmarks start off our match with the offensive drive. Both teams dived into the line of scrimmage, with the Elves being the first to immediately score first blood, as the human team's prize blitzer, John Moxley, nearly loses his life from a quick jab from Paper Strikes, forcing the intervention of their apothecary to prevent any necromancers present from adding a very powerful player to their teams. Following up on this momentum, the Elves eagerly proceed to punish the human team at every opportunity presented to them, fouling with reckless abandon as the referees were too afraid to call the players out, conveniently looking the other way. The Elves were bold for their offensive drive, showing no fear even as Orange Cassidy attempted to harass Paper with the ball, as the continued brawl on the field grinded down Reikland's lines, giving us a one-of-a-kind match where for the first time the Fragile Bloodmarks were the brutes of this game, inflicting all the injuries as opposed to suffering from them. But their overconfidence could very well be their undoing, for when Face breaks away from the cage to ready himself for a handoff, Jungle Boy comes in to take his place in the cage formation and succeeds in wiping a smug look off the elves' faces as a result of the ball fumbling out of Paper's hands. Suddenly, the tide of the match shifted entirely, as now it was the All Elite's turn to pressure the elves' lines as both teams fight over possession of the ball. And it would be a short-lived battle, for once CM Punk entered the fray, Orange Cassidy manages to make his ultimate escape, prompting the Bloodmarks to make the unusual decision of forfeiting the touchdown in exchange of massacring the remainder of Reichland's players. It is a strategy no one could have expected from the elves, but one that quickly showed to prove its worth, as repeated fouls on their team provided injury after injury for every minute the human team chose to stall out the clock. Lance Archer is the first victim as he loses his life to the swarm of elves that gathered around him, and as Reichland continued to stall out the clock in the corner of the end zone, CM Punk would become their final victim of the half, as the star blitzer is forced to sit out the rest of the playoffs with a smashed hip. In the end, all the losses may have yet been worth it, as Orange Cassidy finally gets his team on the board by scoring the first touchdown in the game on the Bloodmarks' offensive drive. It was a costly touchdown for Reichland, as they were now down to only 8 players on the field, 2 of which being their highly valued players that greatly hindered their prowess for this upcoming offensive drive. It was a position the elves would happily take for next kickoff, as they refused to ease off on the throttle that was battling the human team into oblivion, as Jungle Boy joined the rest of his teammates in the injury box. Reichland returned the eye for an eye with a foul of their own, and with the opening provided in the elves' formation, allowed a very quick sprint through the sidelines. And even with the elves wedging them along the edge of the pitch, Orange Cassidy would not be stopped as he breaks through the screen once again to secure Reichland's second touchdown of the match and putting the human team within reach of claiming their spot in the finals. Now down to 7 players, there wasn't much of a defensive formation remaining for the All Elite, as now it was the Bloodmarks' turn to receive the ball for the next kickoff. Being gifted with a touchback allowed for possibly the easiest touchdown the elves have ever achieved in the season so far, and it is a very much needed touchdown at that, if they want any chance of making it to the finals with the deficit that is placed before them. Refusing to ease off on the pressure for the next kickoff, the elves go all out on tying up the game, as a very aggressive blitz from our not-so-fragile team sets them up once again for a very quick touchdown as the final minutes begin to count down on the clock. With a subtle dump-off to Paper after quickly being sacked, the elves tied up the game, managing to recover from a situation that had ended many of our other finalists in the playoffs already, as the fans eagerly awaited the possibility of going into overtime. With the massive numbers deficit continuing in favor of the elves, their overconfidence began to rear its ugly head once more as Reichland made the attempt for a one-turn touchdown. And despite all the odds placed against them, Nuffle had decided to make an intervention in this game, allowing every single play to work in Reichland's favor, and thanks to the lack of a proper screen, allowed Orange Cassidy to claim one final touchdown, putting an end to this insanity of a match, as the Reichland All Elite are our second team to advance to the finals, but at a very heavy price. Our final 2 teams have now been decided, as Reichland All Elite are going to do battle against the godlike Puns one last time to decide which of them is going to claim the ultimate prize of being the best of the league. And it is a match the fans are already impatiently waiting to see. But I have news for you, lucky viewers, for the finals has already taken place and the champions ready to be crowned. So I will not dare keep you waiting any longer as we dive into the final match of Season 8 of the YouTuber League. Sitting at 1580 team value, we have the Godlike Puns as they face off against their fellow human brethren, the Reichland All Elite, who are sitting at 1450 team value coming into this game. And with Reichland continuing to suffer heavily from their shocking match against the Bloodmarks, they may very well be the underdogs of this match, as only 2 of their blitzers are going to be present for this upcoming game, one of which being their guard player, Kenny Orange, and up-and-coming runner, John Moxley, with his added agility to make fantastic plays that no regular human could hope to perform, while CM Punk is stuck watching from the sidelines as he attempts to recover from his injuries, and the now deceased Lance Archer is busy elsewhere looking for a new career as a wandering zombie when his team needs him the most. All hope is not lost, however, with the return of Paul White after recovering from his own injuries to allow some form of power on the pitch for Reichland. However, the Godlike Puns are relatively unscathed in their raw power, only missing out on their star runner Barely Odin on to help in keeping the ball secured for his upcoming game. But with the strength advantage they have and the threat that Thought That Counts presents with his claws, this could very easily become a one-sided fight on the pitch. But so long as there is blood on the pitch, the ravenous crowd could not care less for the results, as they are only here for one reason, and that's for a champion to be declared through the corpses of their fallen opponents. And that is what we are going to get here now, as both teams make ready for the kickoff. An early knockout signals the start to the match, which has Reichland striking back with an immediate injury of their own, already promising a very bloody match to come, as the Godlike Puns receive the ball for our first kickoff of the game. With brawling all across the line of scrimmage, Orange Cassidy attempts to use his new dauntless prowess in an attempt to break into the Norseman's cage, but the Puns held their ground as Aries Pun's complaints kept himself safely secured behind his teammates, locked into eternal battle with Orange Cassidy, who simply refused to go down without a fight. The catcher's persistence truly pays off to Aries' surprise as he finally claims his reward of sacking down the ball. But the price for that persistence costed the All Elite heavily, as suddenly nearly every single one of the human players were down on the ground, with Paul White completely forgetting what he was supposed to do on the Blood Bowl pitch, as he repeatedly stares off into the distance throughout the majority of the drive. Desperate plays were the only thing keeping Reichland in this drive, as being surrounded and on the ground meant that a touchdown was looking all but certain for the Puns, until John Moxley came out of nowhere to sack the ball down to the ground once again. This put the All Elite back into this game as they attempted to stall out the first half to a scoreless match. And with sheer determination and an occasional ogre helping out the team, they were able to hold back the Norsemen as we move into the second half of this game, with the Puns failing to get a touchdown. Thanks to their bench of reserve players, both teams are still 11 players strong for our next kickoff, and with Reichland able to somehow deny the Puns their essential touchdown in the first half, they were looking to be in a very strong position to win the finals right here and now as they received the ball to start off this drive. But disaster strikes as Nuffle retracted his blessing upon the human team, leaving them to fight for themselves as the Godlike Puns begin to work on tightening their noose around the Reichland line. With the Ulfwerners in hot pursuit of the noose thrower Hook, the All Elite attempt to go all in for a fast touchdown, and despite the disturbing presence from the nearby Yeti, Orange Cassidy is just mere feet away from scoring the first touchdown of the match, and would put Reichland one step closer of being crowned the champions of the league. Orange Cassidy did his final sprint to the end zone as the fans held their breath in anticipation. But a shocking upset occurs as the Reichland runner gets tackled down by Palace of Punches as he made his move. With the loss of the ball, things drastically start to spiral out of control for the All Elite as Manny moves to victory, grabs the ball, and he doesn't look back. Sprinting down across the field with reckless abandon, outpacing every Reichland player who dared try to keep between him and the human team's end zone. This lowly lineman manages to do the biggest play of the season for his Norse team by securing the godlike Puns victory in this finals and crowning them the champions of the Season 8 YouTuber League, and putting an end to another incredible season of bloodshed and violence. It took us 127 matches to get to this point, an amount of lifeless bodies that are too numerous to count, and a handful of unforgettable moments that will last until the end of time. All of these things are what makes Blood Bowl the greatest sport in the old world, and it has been my great honor to bring it to you viewers so that I can help you relish every moment this season has had to offer. The time is already drawing near for when the YouTuber League begins its ninth season of the game, with brand new teams and much more bloodshed to bring onto the Blood Bowl pitch, to all the fans' pleasure and delight. I thank everyone for watching through these 4 months of the season, and I will see you next time on the Blood Bowl pitch.